What's up, Philadelphia sports fans? I am Anthony Pinto,
And I'm Kevin Christian.
and welcome to the War Room. We are War Room Philly. As you guys see, we have our special guest tonight is Kevin Christian. First off, how you doing, Kev? What's up?
I'm good, and how about yourself, buddy?
Living the dream. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's always a
It's
good time.
much obliged. So yeah, we got a little bit of everything tonight. Since Kev's here, we got a little bit of a fresh view. Give us a clear set of eyes, hopefully, on this Eagles season. And look, Kev, do we ever bring you on and not at least talk a little bit of Flyers?
I definitely know.
I mean, we try to go 4 for 4 every show, regardless of who's on, right? But tonight it's going to be a lot of Eagles, a lot of Flyers. Not much on the stove for the the Flyers and or for the Sixers and Phillies. But again, chat. You always hold the mic. If you have something, bring it. And especially with Kev here, we got a fresh view. So you can ask him. But we got a little bit of everything. First things first, and I'm gonna spring this on you a little bit, and it just popped into my head. But what did you think about the bubbles? We've completed two successful, very successful, if I may, bubbles in the NHL and NBA. What are your thoughts on it?
I think in something that was, I bravo to both leagues because I don't think anyone thought it was possible to pull this off. It was just
Shout out to Joe Hunter for the sub too, by the way. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. PintoAuto.com. You could have given yourself right there in the message. But do I got it right? That's the new website that I saw Joe Hunter and the Pops drop today. PintoAuto.com. So since he supported me, I'll support him. You guys head on over if you're anywhere in the South Philly area for your auto needs. Yeah, there it is, PintoAuto.com in chat. But I'm sorry, yeah, we were talking about the bubbles.
Yeah, I just think to get everybody on board with something that's never been done before, and to ask a lot of everyone involved, the behind the scenes guys, the players, the coaches, everybody. I think it would. I never expected them to finish. I never expected the NBA to finish. I never expected the NHL to finish, and they blew me away. I mean, the bubble worked exactly how it was supposed to, and bravo to two leagues who, especially the NHL, who are usually much maligned in their decision making and the way they handle things. But I don't think it could have gone better. Currently, as we talked about a little bit before the show, currently watching a bubble for another sport that has fans in the bubble. So how that works.
Look, I hope everyone stays safe. I hope but it's like, wait, wasn't the bubble? I'm so confused. It's just but hey, it was not as spread out as the NFL looked either. I don't know, like, and then you got home runs. There's no social distancing when there's a home run ball in play. I mean, look, I've been as cautious as anyone. I don't care if it's a team I hate. I'm running for that ball.
If I see a ball in the air out there, I'd be
going. Yeah, that's just the center fielder instinct in my blood. I gotta go. I see ball, I get ball. Unlike Aguilar, no, who's currently one of the best wide receivers rated in the game, apparently. No, I digress. That's not the road we're taking yet. Not yet, at least. We're going to start off light. But yeah, just real quick to add on to something, and then we can get back into it. You want to talk about the NHL's decision making? I mean, didn't they? They basically kicked it off. They started this whole thing. They were like, "This is how it's going to happen," and then like hours or days later, the NBA's like, "That's a pretty damn good idea. We're going to take that. We'll go one step further," and then they both just kind of mimicked each other, and it looked like you said. Props to everyone, and I'm glad you mentioned it. Look, obviously the players sacrificed a lot, but think about all of the workers who, they were the wild card in all of this. And that's what, going into it, we were like, we both probably thought this is where, this is why it wouldn't finish. We're like, you got to get everyone in there, and that's that was probably idealistic thinking at the time, and hey, it worked. So again, props to especially all of the behind the scenes people, like down to the maids in the hotels, like literally the chefs, everyone. And yeah, it was fantastic to see both of those leagues. I think both of the productions too. You didn't look. These guys just won the trophy in front of nobody, and it didn't really feel all like that was missing. Obviously, when we see that the fans are back, we're gonna be like, "Holy crap, we were missing a lot." But we had a few weeks to get used to this, and by the end of it, look, don't you dare say LeBron's trophy is tainted because of that, or don't you dare say anything bad about Stamkos and the Lightning. If anything, if there's an asterisk, it should be because it was tougher.
I'm with you.
And that's I guess for the people that are saying put the asterisk there, I hear that a lot too. That they say just because I think it's like the general public's brain is you see asterisks and think bad. But,
right.
You could see it and think good. But I just think that in the history books, I mean, are we really, if anything, highlight it? You don't need because, like, we're probably going to remember this year and maybe even the start of 2021. We'll see. But yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I totally agree with everything. Was there anything else on that you wanted to talk about between either leagues or?
You know what? When you talk about the Astros, I think the biggest thing for me is leagues that are consistent in the way that they're scheduled as well, where you don't have back-to-backs, you have travel days, you have all of this time off in between games, and because of the bubble and the way it was situated and the time crunch, you got playoff games being played on back-to-back games, and being forced to use backup goaltenders because you don't want to wear out your starter. So the decision making from coaches, the players, confidence and dedication to winning this year, to me, it was at an all-time high. And anyone who has anything bad to say about either of the two teams who won, people are always going to put down LeBron for whatever they want to put LeBron down for, but those were well-earned championships. They count just as much, if not more, because of the sacrifices these guys made. And yes, I understand they were in 5-star hotels and all of that, but pretending that it's easy being away from newborns and family and all of this other stuff and normalcy. We all know what having our normal lives taken away from us are.
Yeah. Again, like, sure, the hotels that they were in were luxury, but there's still nothing compared to their actual homes with their actual family.
Right.
And again, a little extra props to the NBA too, because they got the families in there safely at the end, and it was just, look, every time these guys made them, we were like, is this really the right move? And hey, it worked. So hopefully this is how we feel with the fans in the stands and everything, because I don't necessarily think that fans in the stands may affect the players on the field, but just in general, like for the public's well-being. But speaking of, you were mentioning about like the LeBron thing, and everyone wants to hate on him, and they come up with new and clever and creative ways. And look, I don't know if we've ever really done the LeBron versus MJ debate here in any form with anyone on this show. It's probably happened, and I'm just like trying to fake toot my own horn like I always avoid it. But I really can't remember doing it because, in my opinion, you couldn't do it until just now. Because 4 is a lot closer to 6 than 3. You know what I mean? I know it's only 1, but 4 is a lot closer to, and with 3 different teams. And guess what? You just mentioned all the hardships of the bubble. And let's look while we're at it, and I don't want to go down this road, especially on this show, but MJ never had the social justice issues that LeBron was at the forefront of. Whether you agree, disagree, we're not talking about that. I just want to look. It's well documented that MJ didn't go there, and it's well documented that LeBron did. And the fact that He was at the forefront of all this, and for all the haters that, oh, you stop paying attention about that. Well, LeBron did both, and he won. So, again, just to point it out. But in my opinion, this was never a debate until now. The talent was always there. You could always debate that. But yeah, what's your first thoughts before I go on a runaway train?
I think my thing with this is always a fun type of conversation to have.
Mm-hmm.
You can have any sport, and I think at the end of the day, though, and this is what you see is there's such a difference in the generations, and there's such a difference in the game. We remember. I remember MJ as a kid, and I remember the way the game was, and I've watched tape since then. I've never seen anything like LeBron, but that doesn't necessarily mean him the greatest. Or I think it's hard when you try and compare eras, and I think that's hard in any sport because of how drastic the changes end up being. Mm-hmm. I mean, in football, you're looking at guys who throw 5,000 yards every year, year in, year out.
Yeah, Brady Montana. It's.
And when Marino did 5,000 yards back when he in '84,
mm-hmm.
It was unheard of. It was unheard of to break 3,500 back then. So, now we're consistently having quarterbacks who throw at the middle to high fives, and it's not the same game. So when you're trying to compare Montana and Brady, it gets nuts. When you're trying to compare an MJ and LeBron, it gets crazy because, people say the game's softer. There's no defense and stuff like that. And to me, those are narratives, and they're very lazy narratives because
yeah.
Some of these guys can really, really ball. Some of these guys are tough as hell. These guys are bigger, faster, stronger nowadays. But how you compare them, I think it becomes more and more difficult throughout the years. But I agree with you in that comparing 6-3 always felt like a big number difference. Now when you're comparing 6-4 and you're talking about LeBron going to 10 finals, that's just dominance on another level that I think at least you can now have a conversation, and you'll never have anyone agree on anything. That's just, you're going to have those in one side and the other who are just going to...
I can't agree with myself on the subject. Here's how I split hairs. I see MJ as the greatest, but LeBron is the most talented. He's I don't want to say much better, but he's a much better all-around basketball. Offensively, MJ takes it all day. Defensively, in the era that we don't play defense, LeBron could have bodied anyone throughout history. And that's what makes him so special. Defensively, 1 through 5, he can take anybody, and he does it daily. And you saw him. He was on at all time. He was on either Jimmy Butler or whoever was hot. Tyler Hero in that, and they put. Actually, they put AD on Butler at times, which is just it was just disrespectful on how much better the Heat were than the or how much better the Lakers were than the Heat. But it also goes to show you how good LeBron is defensively. That if Adebayo was, he could be there and still guard him. Who's a dominant, down there in the low post, he could still cover him. He does these things, but yeah, Kobe better than LeBron. Offensively, yes, but no, not. I don't know all around, and I don't mean to disrespect Kobe, but yeah, and again, now that there's 4, he's it's winning championships isn't everything too, but now he's up there right along the lines with all of them. But again, greatness, I still think MJ, just in that shortened period of time, was unstoppable. But here's the thing, LeBron now and he's still got, 4 years left? He's probably more than likely going to win another ring. So we'll probably have this conversation. Look, now it started. Yeah. And now the debate is on, in my opinion, at least. Before it was kind of nonsense. But now it's I'm at least at the table and listening. I probably still lean MJ, but yeah, it's officially I'm all ears, and I here's the thing, everyone gives, LeBron had AD, LeBron had Bosh, Pippen, Rodman. You want to talk coaches? Phil Jackson, arguably the greatest coach of all time. You know what I mean? Jordan had help. And I don't even have to, like, I'm not even looking up the role players that were probably on that team, too, you know? Like, he had help. So let's not act like he did it all on his own. But that's the thing. He did when it, you know, he had that killer shot when it counted. The mid-range game was just, you know, at a time when that existed, was killer. But yeah, I mean, if you even look, LeBron's 3 numbers might even be better than Jordan's. Off the top of my head, I'd have to look again though, and that points to your completely different games. If Jordan played now, Jordan would be a 45% three. You know, like he would have worked on that. So that's
look like her.
Yeah, that's where I think people need to like realize that these superstars that are like, if Wilt played today, he would have been shooting threes. You know, it's like these guys, the greats of their generation, in my opinion at least, are timeless. Like the greatest of the greats can play it. And like Montana could have played now. Brady could have played in Montana's era. And you know, throughout baseball, you can throw it up and down. But speaking of baseball, I saw it was 13-0 when we started the chat. But yeah, 15-1, and it's only the bottom of the third. This is how you turn the series around if you're the Dodgers. I don't know who I'm rooting for in that series, to be honest with you, because I hate the Dodgers, and the Braves are in my division, so I guess I hate them too. But yeah.
And then I got a problem in the AL though too, because I seriously don't think the Stros win.
Yeah, that's you and every other baseball fan is with you. Look, I was actually talking to a good friend of mine who's a Yankees fan, and I was like, I will straight up root for the Yankees for the first time in my life to beat the Astros if I have to.
100%.
Because I just, you know, it's like, I don't like this whole thing in sports where it feels like people get caught at cheating and then they just continue to win. And it's like, what? Come on.
That was my thing. I really wanted poetic justice in that I wanted it to be the Yankees and the Stros in the ALCS. And if I don't get that, I do want the World Series to be Stros and Dodgers, so the Dodgers can beat them all.
Oh, okay.
I want somebody to get justice.
Yeah, I want the Rays to win it all out of the teams that are left. But
and I always enjoy a team like that.
Yeah.
I don't
look.
the Rays.
The way I say it is, you gave us ours in 08. I'll tip my cap and let you guys get one now that, you know, we're completely irrelevant.
A whole team of like 23-year-olds. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, when we were talking about this a little bit last week, Greg was mentioning it. That's like the best organization in baseball. Like, sure, they haven't won it yet, but just like with their payroll and how they just they're just a talent factory.
Yep.
So yeah. That awkward when you realize that baseball is still on. Yeah. Lost in My Mind 98. That's a new name and a new follow too. So thanks for the follow. And if you're if we know you, or if you want to be, you know, known as your first name, we you just let me know and I'll learn it. But yeah, I appreciate the follow. We love it. Yeah, baseball is indeed still on. It's you know, for me, look, I'm baseball is like the one sport I watch most casually. I'm like the opposite of everyone else. I'm an old soul. I love baseball. I love just watching baseball and being like, what pitch is he gonna throw? You know, I'm always thinking. It was just you know, it was just how I was brought up by a great coach in chat, Joe Hunter. Just always thinking the game. But yeah. You know, yeah, you've been a closet Yankee, but you've liked the Red Sox at times too, and it throws me off. I don't know. I'm not sure, but yes, my dad is unfortunately he likes to rock that Yankees gear every now and then. I'm not a big fan of it. But yeah. Moving in, this is a Philly sports talk show. And you know what? Real quick, one last thing of nonsense, because I just realized I even wrote it down because it was right before we went on. These Patrick Stewart and Mark Hamill Uber Eats commercials, I laugh at them every time. And I just think it's because it's like, I'm more impressed by the marketing group that decided we're going to get both of them and just impress every nerd, no matter who you are. And it's like, oh man, that's just a lot of talent.
And I fully believe that's all improv between the two of them.
Yeah, like
No
yeah,
shit. They just said, just talk, guys.
and like I just saw the air hockey one. Like I think that was a newer one too. And like I just
All that.
it was it was cracking me up. But yeah, you know what else cracks me up? This Eagles team.
Oh, God.
No, but it's I don't even know where to start with this team anymore. Which is why oh, nice logo. So is that a hint? Is that Jeff? Does that mean is that Jeff in chat? But with this fly and with this Eagles team, and which is why in chat the title is there anything good? Because if you have anything good in chat, obviously, maybe Travis Fulgham, but like if you have anything good about this team, maybe we can start there. But as the way I'm looking at things, just top to bottom, it's been bad. And then this weekend happens, and again, it's like it almost would have felt better if you got blown out. But you're in it all game, and you lose really to coaching errors.
Yep.
So it's where does this team go from here? Where do they start? What do you think right now of this defense and in general, like the defensive coordinator? Look, Nate Gary. A lot of people are mad at him. But should you be mad at him? Like, we know he's a linebacker, and he stinks, and we can get him off the team too. And like, I'm not trying to defend Nate Gary, but for sake of everything, why is he lined up against the hottest receiver for the Steelers?
Yep.
That's got to be, is that just Jim Schwartz's fault? Why doesn't Doug Pederson call a timeout? Why does Howie Roseman have a guy like Nate Gary even on the field? It's just felt like it's been top to bottom with this team, and I'm confused.
I think for me, I've got, like you were mentioning earlier, I've got two positive things I've seen from this team consistently throughout the year. Darius Slay, who I was very, very critical of the move. I was very, very concerned about another awesome lob. Byron Maxwell, the whole thing we've seen of stud corners coming in. He's played absolutely out of his mind. Big hits. He's a sure tackler. And it's one of the few out of that position that we've had in a long time. And other than that front 4, 8, however many of those guys they got rotating in, they get pressure for the whole beginning of every game and through most of the beginning of the second half. But they're on the damn field all day. And so at some point, that stops working. Brandon Graham can only get up and run, get knocked over, and so many times before after a while, it's just someone else has got to make a play. The fact that they have not had turnovers consistently this year, except for that middle school pass from Nick Mullins that hit Singleton in the face, or I don't think he would have caught it anyway. The linebacking core is so bad. Jalen Mills needs to go. We've tried him at 11 different positions. He sucks at all of them. Give up this experiment. And watching Sidney Jones play okay in Jacksonville makes it worse.
Yeah. Yeah, real quick, too, shout out to Jay Ziggy, Jamie, who says, hey, happy 6 months of having me as a sub. Which means we are 6 months in to having subscribers, which is awesome. Jamie has the longest streak, I believe, which is awesome. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your support. But yeah, I love it. But yeah, I'm sorry. Can continue as far as let's continue bashing this defense.
There's just too many, and you're right. And that was the biggest thing that got me is, Nick Gary getting beat and Rodney McLeod running away from Gary when he's got to give him safety help in that situation. There's so many problems I have with that play. The biggest one being, how do you call that? And like you said, that's my biggest concern. I think Schwartz gets a lot of blame, sometimes unwarranted, because the defense is on the field a ton, and they kept the Eagles in the game this week until they didn't. until Wentz started learning how to play offense again and the team started moving and they just basically started feeding the number 13 Fulgham or whatever the hell you say his name. Until they started feeding him, the offense couldn't do anything. And the defense kept them in the game. But once it started breaking down, it always gets bad. And so, to me, Pederson's been awful all year. Play calling is a mess. The offense is just a whole other story. But
yeah.
The defense is my biggest problem right now because you're not utilizing the best parts of your defense, and you're overutilizing players who shouldn't be in the league.
It feels like Jim Schwartz does this thing where he'll not all the time, but like let's say the defense starts off hot, which feels like happens more often than not.
Right.
That they'll get off to a good start, and what's working when they start off, and they're being more aggressive, they're blitzing more, and then as the game wanes on more and more, you see the defense play back softer and softer and sticks. And it's like, why? You've seen time and like how many 3rd and 15s are we going to see get converted on a screen pass? Like how many times is this going to continually happen? And I know there are worse defensive coordinators than Jim Schwartz, but why everyone goes nuts over this guy is because we see things working and we're just fans and we're just people watching. We don't get paid. We pay the product. And we're like, why are you stopping this? Jalen Mills, you were at least hiding him at safety. Why is he playing cornerback again? And if he is playing cornerback, we've seen him have, I don't want to call it success, but not suck in the nickel position. And you know what's Jalen Mills' biggest problem? He gets burned by the double move.
Oh, no.
Put him in the nickel where that is much less likely to happen on the outside. I mean, why can I think of these things, but the guy that's getting paid millions of dollars is overlooking that, and I know it drives other people nuts if it's driving me this nuts, because I try to keep it a little more even keel than the average fan, at least when I got the microphone in front of me. Game day, it's a completely different story, but when I come here and I try to be level-headed about things, it's just like I feel your frustration out there with him, and I again, I don't want to put all the blame on him because look, Nate Gary can't be in that position, but Nate Gary shouldn't be on the field, and that's Howie Roseman's prerogative. And we're hearing a lot of mixed signals with what's going on between Howie Roseman and this coaching staff, and look, at this point, I'm not going to defend Jim Schwartz. But if I'm busting out the guillotine and it's only got one blade or whatever, like it's only got one bullet in the chamber, it's got to be for Howie at this point to me, because if not for anything, it's his ineptitude to draft. Like time and time again, that's the number one mark of a good general manager, and we just time and time again, I mean, misses.
We're on year 2 in a row with not having a single impact player out of the draft.
Yeah, and like you might get some help out of some of these wide receivers down the road, but you're also like, a guy like Justin Jefferson, who on draft day, personally I didn't like, slack guy, I was talking down him, performing out the ass.
Oh my God!
A lot of people wanted Justin Jefferson. Okay, and again,
I was being Greg that night. That was what we were talking about.
I was not one of them. I'll be honest. But yeah, looking good. Moving up to take CeeDee Lamb would have been nice. But no, hey, we took Reich, and we look flashes, but also hurt twice. So that's a problem. Quez Watkins hurt already. Like these guys are just rolling through the injuries, no matter what position. And again, that's also on Howie. Just imagine this. I'm going to re-sign Vinny Curry, and he got hurt for a 19th time? Who would have thought? DeSean Jackson, like everyone, when that move happened, I was like, look, the fan in me is happy because I love DeSean, but I'm looking at this move as an analyst, and this doesn't make any sense. He was already tissue paper before he got here, and we've had, what? Want to call it, be fair, 2 games out of DeSean Jackson? Like, 2 full games worth of use.
And like you said, I'm the guy who went to bat for DeSean when he was holding out his first time here. I'm the guy who lost it when they caught him for nothing because of gang ties or whatever the hell.
Chip Kelly was an idiot. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was the guy who said, you're going to miss this guy because he opens up everything. But if you watched what he did in Washington, you knew he wasn't going to play. He couldn't get on the field then. Bringing him back and continuing to re-sign him is just remarkable. And like I said, I love DeSean. He's one of the
huge
most electric players.
One of the only jerseys that I got right now that's current, and that's because it was an old one.
Yeah.
But just while we're on the you were talking about Rodney McLeod, and I was letting you finish. But I'm glad we were talking signings and bad signings because speaking of bad signings, you re-signed the wrong safety this year. I'm gonna say it until I'm blue in the face, but you should have brought back Malcolm Jenkins, who is a leader in that locker room and a stud in that backfield. I don't care how old he is. Still would have been better than Rodney McLeod, who is young but got a lot of mileage because of injuries.
And I don't think McLeod's their problem. Their problem is that...
I agree.
If you're going to have a guy like Mills switch to safety, switch him and keep him with a legend at that position. Wait,
the legend that he practiced with all offseason?
That's what I mean.
I would have thought.
Why not keep them together if you're going to try and teach him a new position? But instead, you've now set him up for failure because remember how we had Dawkins and then we had Jenkins? Here's Jalen Mills.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're thrilled. Thanks, Howie. Like, that's not the same level of player. It's not even close to being a passable. And then he gets torched every week. He's still 7 years into his career doesn't know how to tackle.
Mm-hmm.
If I see one more arm tackle from him, I will not be shocked and just assume this is normal because it's the only thing he brings you at this point is runs really fast and then dives at someone's legs, and 9 out of 10 times they don't fall down because he's 110 pounds.
Yeah.
So,
this is something that I get called out for being a Jalen Mills fan a lot, especially on Twitter by our good friend Nick. And it's like, I always say, hey, I want to be a Jalen Mills fan because I'm a Spider-Man fan and he's the Green Goblin, all right? But I am by no means a Jalen Mills fan. I just want to, I need this guy to produce, and then I'll buy his jersey. But he's not a cornerback. He's not an outside cornerback. He's at least a nickel. I don't know that he's a safety. Maybe we can play him in Nate Gary's position. But you do get Will Parks back.
Yeah.
Or you should get Will Parks back this week, if not very soon. So that helps. Or at least we hope it helps, because we're told that they want to play a 3 safety set, which will take Nate Gary off the field. And anything to take Nate Gary off the field sounds good to me.
I agree.
Was the first quarter? What happened? Yeah. Just the whole defense, honestly, it was bad. And again, this team has just it's been so up and down, it's so very up and down. And speaking of that, the quarterback has been up and down. Which look, if I'm Doug Pederson, I'm calling the Phillies up and I'm going, can I borrow Citizens Bank Park for 8 hours? And if they ask what, I need 2 bases. I need first and second base out there. And I'm going to have Carson Wentz play first base or second base. And I'm going to have one where all of my wide receivers, or not even, I'm going to have Zach Ertz, any tight end that's healthy, my running backs, all the people that are catching screen passes to go to first base. And you're going to just line up in drills. And Carson is going to go from all different positions. We're going to get Girardi in the mix because any position that the second baseman shifts to, Carson is going to have to shift and move to different places. And he's going to have to throw the ball for 8 hours to the first base bag because this dude has a serious problem with throwing screen passes. And I am the biggest Carson Wentz fan that you can find. But my God, people keep saying, why doesn't the screen game work? Because Carson Wentz can't throw a goddamn screen pass. And it's just, I'll accept when a 50-yard pass is off the mark. But the 5-yard ones, the layups that Doug Pederson claims there are none in the NBA or in the NBA in the NFL. The layups are just it's gotta go. Wentz he's got to clean that up.
Yeah.
And that's step one, because then you can start moving things. Like, people keep talking about Ertz being a non-factor, and I'm like. And even Doug Pederson actually, I think, hung Wentz out to dry in one of his press conferences this week. Kind of said that that a couple balls haven't been there for Ertz, and a lot of people are putting a lot of blame on Ertz right now. And I'm like, look, first off, he's getting double teamed, and that many tight, like, everyone wants to give Fletcher Cox the benefit of the doubt for double teams, but Ertz is a tight, like. What tight ends do you really like? Even Kittle, at least when he's playing the Eagles, doesn't get tight. He doesn't get double teamed. Like, right now, because of the lack of weapons. Like, look, teams might game plan now for a Travis Fulgham, but they're still gonna focus on Zach Ertz. They know that if they can get him out of this offense, this is what happens. This entire season is the byproduct of, we are going to eliminate Zach Ertz. Goddard is hurt. Everyone else is hurt at wide receiver. All you have to focus on... Look, the Eagles aren't going to run the ball. All you have to focus on is Zach Ertz, who also, while I'm on the run the ball thing, Zach Ertz has also been chipping in for the offensive line, which is completely non-existent, and might be down to just one of their original starters going into this week in Jason Kelce.
Yep.
So yeah. It's first Peters. Yeah. No, look, look, for all the things that I said about Wentz, I'm by no means like mad at Carson Wentz. Like, again, I'm still a big fan of his. I still believe in his talent. I'm never going to say put in Jalen Hurts. If anything, I'm getting furious that Wentz is out there lined up at a wide receiver spot instead of Hurts. Like, in my opinion, look, I get that you need to justify a really terrible second round pick, and you got to put him. But if it's 3rd and 1, that's where Jalen Hurts is going to be a wide receiver. We all know they're going to quarterback sneak anyway, so maybe one defender think, what the hell is that guy going to do? And then still Carson Wentz cannot be lined up at the wide receiver spot. I'm sorry. And if you're going to bring Hurts in, then just take Wentz off the field for a play. I'm fine with it.
Right.
Well, I'm not fine with it, but I'm better than that than not. Do we miss Frank Reich yet? Well, here's the thing about Frank Reich. Yes, we do.
Right.
But you weren't going to, after winning a Super Bowl, fire Doug Pederson to hire Frank Reich as your new head coach. That was unrealistic. And Frank Reich wanted to be a head coach, right? So it's not that we miss Frank Reich, it's that we're noticing Doug Pederson's bad head coach. That's what people need to realize. When they bring up Frank Reich's name, you need to just omit that from your brain and go, Doug Pederson might be the problem.
My bigger issue is DeFilippo.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want to commit to him to take over for Reich, and then he left with it. He left to go to Minnesota instead. So you lost both guys who were working well with your quarterback, which was my bigger problem. Like you said, you're not going to be able to hold on to Frank Reich. Someone wants to offer him a head coaching job. That's it. That's the end of that.
Yeah. It's like you can't drive yourself as a fan. There are so many things we can go nuts over right now. Yeah. We've casually, you mentioned one and I mentioned one, both just like as like slip of the tongues. You mentioned Sidney Jones and I mentioned Nelson Aguilar. Like, we just casually, those are things that can occupy space in your mind. The whole Frank Reich thing, just it's yes, we miss him, but like, it's illogical to think that like you weren't going to have co-head coaches. You weren't going to make Frank Reich a general manager, were you? Like, I don't know that there was a more lucrative job available for him than a head coaching job. So, but when you say, do you miss Frank Reich? I think what you're really saying is the real problem Doug Pederson, which again, I'm not saying it's not, but I still have to get rid of Howie Roseman first. I don't know, maybe I'm a softie, but he did win a Super Bowl, and I don't. Maybe I gotta get rid of. Like there can be other blood before him, so maybe that's why, but no, I see the clear problems with Doug Pederson. I quote frequently on Sundays that I believe that he farts into a wine glass and smells it, via South Park. But I fear that. I fear that all of these guys, after winning the Super Bowl, look, if I went to work and there was a statue of me outside, I'd smell my own farts and think it was good, you know. But it's just that's that kind of thing. Like, that's it's troubling, and I do think that Doug's got to start to look within and find, when we challenged him as fans, and even as I think I remember Lane Johnson, that was like, we need to start running the ball more. And then it was like week 3, this team ran the ball a shit ton, and then week 4 they continued it. It's like, why is it now when we say you need to run the ball more, it's, oh well, this guy's tired, or this and that, or we got to get this going. It's like it just feels like there's a lot of lip service, and yeah, I don't know.
And with Miles Sanders, who at the beginning of last year, I was very, very concerned with him because he got into that shady running of east-west instead of north-south, and he's not. And then the whole second half of the year, he was phenomenal, just busting through holes and all of that. Now he's back to east-west again. Knock it off. Do exactly what you did on that touchdown run. The difference between that run and your other 12 attempts was you ran straight through, ran a guy over, and took off.
Yeah.
The other 12 times you tried to run around the tackles when it was a clear inside run, and you got beat up in the backfield.
Yeah, I wonder if the offensive line is any to blame for that, but I still... I agree, and it's a mark of a young running back. He is year 2 still, but you're right. He's and that's where Deuce has got to get in his ear and be on him with that same tone. You just north south.
Like that's the thing that always is crazy to me. Deuce Staley, who is Mr. North South, it can't convince running backs that that's the best way to go about this game right now.
I mean, hey, look, sometimes it's you can have the best coach in the world, and sometimes, especially, look, I'm still going to give him benefit of the doubt. Year 2, year 2. What are we? Week 5. So he's still got some learning to do. He's playing behind a very weak offensive line. But here, like when we see that Wentz isn't fully into a groove yet, why not give him the ball first and second down? It feels like it's almost against the law for Doug Pederson to run first and second down sometimes.
I don't know if he's ever done it.
Not this season, like straight up, and I don't know if he's done it back to back this season yet. And
unless Wentz takes off running on first or second down, and they're including that as back to back.
I want 2 running back plays, even if one of them's a run pass and he gives them he gives them the run. But no, it's. We have to commit to this run game more. You have to stick with it through 4 quarters. Now I get the Pittsburgh game was a little back and forth with you were down a little bit, so I get it. But I think that's step 1 for this offense, and I think Doug Pederson, we hear him reiterate the term, we hear him talk about simplifying the game so much. I think it's time to make it more complicated.
Great. Your game is so simple. I played football a very long time ago, and not for long. I know what you're running before you run it on offense.
Yeah.
I can tell you exactly. I sound like Roma when I'm at home watching it, where I'm like, oh, it's about to run off tackle, and that's exactly what you do. I shouldn't be able to tell what you're going to do. Yeah. I liked it when we had Big Ball Doug, who would just do random things that make absolutely no sense, and they worked.
Yeah.
And that was the best part of Doug. It looked like he was taking those steps that McVay and the other brand new brains of the NFL were doing. And now he's like, oh, we need to be as simple as possible. Let's try and run the West Coast. Yeah. It's not the early 90s 49ers, dude. It's 2020. You need to be trying different things, or defenses are just going to blow you up.
Yeah, and especially and it feels like he's trying to make up, like for instance, 4th and 5, 57-yard field goal. Let's send Jake Elliott out. 4th and 5, in 2017 at that spot on the field. Doug Pederson goes for it. He calls quite possibly a ballsy, maybe a weird call, or he just calls a standard call. They convert on that 4th and 5, and they score a touchdown on that drive. Doug Pederson in 2020 kicks a field goal, can't knock, Elliott. He had the leg for it, but that stadium they even said it on the broadcast. The broadcast booth was a whole different story that I almost forgot to get on, but my man was calling Carson Wentz like the golden god, and I looked at his numbers, and he was like 8 for 20 at some point. Wentz had a really poor first half, and he was just talking him up the whole way. Oh, he's been great. Oh, it's like because he hadn't turned the ball over, he was like talking him up. But yeah, as far as this team goes in this game, it was all over the place. I don't know. But yeah, it's moving in. Now you got the Ravens. So I don't know. Well, if you have any other Eagles thoughts, I know there's a lot more to get into, but I am noticing the time, and I'm seeing that it's I want to talk some Flyers, and I want to talk enough Flyers that we can cover a little bit of everything. Because Flyers have been having a really good offseason, so maybe we can move on from this negativity. And again, if anybody out there has anything on the Eagles, bring it. Any questions at all? If you have any predictions for Sunday, by all means. It just doesn't feel like the kind of season where we're looking even forward. Hey, there are going to be fans in the stands. Fans in the stands. I went Ilya Brizgalov. I don't know why. The fans in the stands are outstanding. No. So that's that. Again, be safe, be loud. I know for a fact 7,500 Eagles fans can sound like a Jacksonville stadium full. So yeah, let's do it. And again, just be loud, be safe. That's the mantra for Sunday. But yeah, like I said, if you got anything on the Eagles, bring it. But while we do that, we're going to make a transition and try to get some positive vibes going, because the Flyers have quietly... Look, they lose Matt Niskanen. Now, maybe this is me trying to be a little bright and cheery, but they lose Matt Niskanen, who was a great number one line, top line defenseman, but they gain his cap, and they sign Eric Gustafsson, who I'm pretty high on. Not maybe the best season last year, but I look at Gus and I see a polished Shane Gostisbehere. Maybe not Ghost at his best, because I think if Ghost could ever get to his best, he'd be dangerous. But I see Gus as a polished Ghost. And am I off base in thinking that, or?
So what I would say is this. I think that on the offensive side, I would say Gus is a better offensive defenseman in that his shots get through and they will always hit the net. Now, 5 games into the season, after he's hit the glass 12 times, you'll hear a very different story out of me. But from what I've seen in the tape I've watched, he always gets the shot through, which has always been Ghost's problem. If Ghost hits the net, it's in the net. But he goes high and wide, he'll miss the net by a little bit. So defensively, he's a problem. Much more than Ghost. For anyone who thinks Ghost is a problem in their own end, you're really not going to like Gustafsson. He struggles mightily. He played top pairing in Chicago, but he also played top pairing in Chicago with future Hall of Famer Duncan Keith, who covers a lot of boils for people. So I think it's one of those things where I like the move. I like it because it's 1 year. I like it because it's only $3 million. I like it because it gives you, in my opinion, 6 defensemen at an NHL caliber, which I don't think you have prior to this move, because I do not believe Robert Haig is an NHL caliber defenseman. Now you're back to having Provorov, Sanheim, Myers, Gustafsson, Braun, and Ghost. They're going to intermit play Haig in front of Ghost, Haig in front of Braun. They're going to rotate through. That's how it's going to work all season. But having 7 again, legitimate NHL defensemen, I think is important in a season where you don't know how this is going to play. They're talking about 50 games starting in January or February. That means you're playing a lot of back-to-backs. You're playing a lot of games very quickly. So you need to have that. When you don't have cap space that gives you any room to breathe, you need to have players on this lineup that give you that opportunity. So I like the move. I feel bad for Ghost because I think because of the way Niskanen left, it opened up an opportunity for Ghost to really step back into who he used to be. Now I think he's going to be relegated back to a third-line pairing. It'll be what it is. But my concern is the fit at the end of the day because while Goss covers the offensive side of what Niskanen brought, it opens up a big hole still on the defensive side of things. So who they're going to play Provorov with, who they're going to play, how the pairing shake up at all is my concern, and I'm curious to see how AV deals with that.
Yeah, here's my first draft of my defensive pairings, and this is based off of I think they're going to trade Gostisbehere, which I'm not necessarily in favor of, but I could be very quickly depending on who you get back. I've seen, not necessarily at a credible site, but I've seen his name linked to Johnny Gaudreau, who is my new version of Bobby Ryan. But right on
Ghost is worth a pick if anything right now.
Exactly. That's why I prefaced with not a credible site.
Yeah, I know.
Which is and that's the thing. It's like if you could get something like that, hell yeah. But I don't know, especially with how the Flyers have, for lack of a better term, treated him, maybe rightfully or wrongly. But with that, like you said, about a pick is what you get back, and again, you would gain cap space,
right?
Which you could potentially use for some offense, and I guess that if you can, however you move Gostisbehere, if you can replace him with offense, from a forward position, not from the defensive position, right. I'll be able to swallow that pill a little bit better. I'm with you. Like I tend to believe that I would want to play him more. I would maybe even want to put him in the top, in the second line, to start at least, especially early in the season, because if anything, you might boost his value. Right. At the worst, you're still dealing with which you're going to get now for him. But I still believe in Shane Gostisbehere, the player, maybe to a fault. I believed in Jake Arrieta going into this Phillies season. I believed in him every year he was here. Sometimes I'm just wrong. Jake Arrieta was like, I was just a bad gambler. Like, it's gotta happen now. But like, no.
Again and again.
Yeah. Are they keeping the cardboard fan? That'd be funny to see if Eagles fans mess with the cardboard cutouts. Because if anyone's going to mess with the cardboard cutouts, it's an Eagles fan that watching the Ravens destroy them. So we shall see. We shall see. But yeah. You answered my one question just during that was going to be what can Gostisbehere bring back. So yeah, and that's now the tough thing too. It's and if so, let's go off of this then. If you trade him for a pick, is there anything like we've seen? Free agency has moved rapidly. Yeah. And just Google it. If you've missed it. Because we don't necessarily have enough time. If you want to like mention any of the big ones, feel free. But it's been rapid and it's been kind of fun to watch just how fast. Like the big names, there was no waiting for free agency this year. One of the more exciting, like, granted not a ton of big names, but still some pretty big moves that were made.
That's two of the biggest I've seen in a long time with Hall and Pietrangelo.
Yeah.
So Pietrangelo wasn't a surprise, but Hall was.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I think the biggest thing was I thought the Flyers did a really good job of not overpaying for anybody.
Yep.
Because there's two things for that. One, the cap space, obviously, which is always going to be a thing. especially in this town. And you have so many contracts coming up at the end of this year. So it's something you have to keep an eye on, you have to pay attention to. And the second thing is, without a trade that involves a forward, where is a forward you sign playing? I understand Flyers fans are upset about the lack of goals in the playoffs. I 100% get it. I was pissed off and throwing things just like everybody else. But at the end of the day, you had two guys on pace for 30-plus goals. You had a captain who took 4 games to really get it going and then was by far the best player on the ice for the last 11 games of the playoffs. Goals came when they came, but that's part of the game. It's not always going to be scoring. Jake Voracek, I don't want to hear anyone complain about his contract all year. He was the only one who showed up for every playoff game. He scored his ass off. So this team had success not only in the regular season, the first couple of games of the round robin. They struggled to score against very good defensive teams in the postseason. And that sucked, and it pissed us off, and I get it. But the fact that we've spent the last 6 weeks talking about a guy in Patrick Laine who does nothing but score, which is fair, but scored at a lower rate than Konechny in the last 2 seasons. But we don't talk about that. We talk about Konechny having 0 goals in the playoffs.
Yeah, and real quick, just like Jake Gary, I will bet my bottom dollar that if you play as many playoff games as Travis Konechny scores at least one. You know,
Right.
like, and it's like, so again, like you can't, you know that you're not gonna go in and he's gonna do that again. Like it was,
he hit 4 posts in 2 games.
yeah.
This was a guy who was right there, and he started slow. He was the one who concerned me out of the round robin, because while everyone else seemed to be clicking, he looked like he was slow and had been not played hockey in 4 months. But the Islanders series, him and G were your best 2 players. And I know people will say Hayes because he scored a bunch of goals where he shot it off his left foot and it went in. But he had the bounces. But there was no question that you had guys like G and Konechny just squeezing those sticks, and it sucks when they get into that, and especially when it's 7 games, and if you don't win, you're done. So trying to make these big moves for a guy, if you think you dislike JVR, if people in Philadelphia don't like JVR, you are going to loathe Patrick Laine. He goes months without scoring a goal, then scores 12 in a weekend.
Yeah.
Then he'll go another month without scoring a goal, and then he scores 10 in 3 days. That's just who he is. That's what goal scorers do.
Raul Ibanez of the NHL.
Huh?
Raul Ibanez of the NHL.
No, honestly, it's the same kind of. To me, it was the same sort of thing we were talking about with Ertz, where people don't see the run blocking. They don't see he's open and the ball's not getting there. Because in Philadelphia, if you don't score touchdowns, it doesn't matter. If you don't score goals, it doesn't matter. And that's most sports fans. But especially in my years here in the city, I've noticed that's us. When you play offense, you better score. You better hit home runs if you play baseball. You better make sure you do it. So to me, it's always fun because you lose all of your value if you don't score, if you don't catch, if you don't do those things when you do everything else right. Those things will come back to you. If you're good at that, you're going to get back to it. I don't know. That to me, it's you have 6 forwards who are top 6 forward level, and you have probably about 9 forwards who are bottom 6 level. So you're already going to be struggling to figure out who plays where and who plays with who. I don't think adding an Evgeny Dadonov, or if they had gone out and got Toffoli or Mike Hoffman, guys who are goal scorers who don't add anything defensively or anywhere else on the ice, really would have made a difference here. I think in the end of the day, you need guys like Farabee to take big steps, and you have to know what's going on with Nolan Patrick. So the way they handled this offseason, sure looks like Nolan Patrick starts the season as the 3C. If they go out and get a 3C, then we know he's in trouble and he's not going to play.
Yeah,
So,
and you got Morgan Frost too.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. I love Morgan Frost. I think Morgan Frost is a dynamic player who makes everyone around him a better player. They continue to talk about him, they being Chuck Fletcher and Brent Flair, like he's still years away. Like he wasn't anywhere close. I thought he was good. I thought he was still a little small when he came up, but he's going to be small. I thought he still made plays. I thought he I mean, he had a sick goal in his first game. I thought he made that third line better, and I think next year you're looking at a third line that's probably going to be, whether it's Patrick or Frost, with JVR and Farabee.
Yeah.
That's skilled players that you want to have someone in the middle who knows what they're doing. Scott Lawton's getting demoted back to a fourth line player next year. That's how deep this Flyers team is. So with Lindblom back, like I said, with the idea of Patrick being back or Frost making this team, you have a deep top nine that your bottom three is going to be something along the lines of Raffl, Lawton, and Nick Aubé-Kubel, who proved he deserves to be in the NHL.
Yeah, and your boy's gone too, Nate. Your boy Nate.
Oh,
Nate, when I saw that, I was like, "That's probably how you feel." How I felt when Gudas or Hartnell left.
No, I felt the same way you did about Hartnell.
Yeah.
I still defend that Umberger trade to this day. I don't care how bad it was that we had to play with Artie Umberger. We got rid of Hartnell. No, it was for me. It was it was funny. I think Keith was actually at my house when they signed Thompson, and not even 5 minutes before, I said to him, someone better sign this guy. Because until he's on an NHL team that's not the Flyers, I don't believe he won't be back to ruin my day again. And then not even 2 minutes later, I checked Twitter, and the Jets signed him. I'm like, you're the best. Thanks, guys. Grant's gone, Thompson's gone. The guys who we brought in and gave up draft picks to help out in the center position, which was needed. When you're down Lindblom, you're down Patrick Still. Yeah, I get it. You need all that stuff. But go. They signed two guys two of their draft picks who were in college are ready to go. They're going to be either up with the big team or they're going to be up with the Phantoms this year in Lazinski and Allison. And they just signed Linus and Dean from the SHL. They're all bottom six type players. They all fill those same roles. They all kind of look like Aubé-Kubel clones, which I know people love Tyler Pitlick, and I did too. But Kubel is the same player, and he does it better.
Yeah, Pitlick, and I think he had some flashes in the playoffs too, and people remember what they've seen last. But yeah, Pitlick is going to be a guy that he's in one year and out the other. Once you get over it, once you see this team play again. I see a couple things in chat. How do we feel about G? Which I kind of feel like we answered organically through that conversation. Love JVR more than that jackass captain. That I just disagree, but it's such a Philadelphia statement. First off, how anyone can still love JVR surprises me.
That's me.
But yeah, like you said, I'm a little less high on Giroux's Islanders series than you. I acknowledge that he wasn't terrible like most people think. I'm probably somewhere in the middle between where you lie and the fan base. I see everything he does on the ice, and I'm grateful for it. But when your team is down like that, that's where you need your stars. That's Konechny too. Like I'm saying that to him too, and again, I'm betting on all of those guys. I'm going back in there, but just to be fair and just to give a little bit for all those things that Giroux does and did in the Islanders series. And you're right, like it was the Islanders. It was the last game they won. He sets up the pass that Hayes scores on, right? So he was still effective offensively. Even Konechny, I think, had an assist later. Did he score in one of the last couple of games? Like
he kicked it over to Hayes, who scored later on.
Yeah, so both of the struggling players just fed Hayes.
And that's the thing is when you have a guy who and Hayes scored 4 goals in the playoffs, and 3 of them went off of the defenseman of the Islanders, the random post, another teammate. Like that's what happens in the playoffs. That's how you score.
Mm-hmm.
Even G's goal is a tip from 30 yards out that then hit 2 other players. That's how you score in the playoffs. That's how the Lightning won the cup. For the most part, was shots like that.
Voracek scored 2 consecutive goals like that. It felt like
he hit 2 one off his throat. So that's just the way that stuff goes sometimes. And I'm all right with Kevin Hayes adding in. I'm all right with anybody adding in. But you're right. And that was the thing that got me is in the big moments, especially when Coots is hurt. That's my biggest problem was Coots is hurt. Connecting and G have to take that step and get the goals. Because Coots is on one leg again. And the last time he had a hat trick and you still lost the game. So pick him up.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's again. You had guys like Couture. You had like Voracek again, a guy whom I was down on. Just my words always taste good, especially in the playoffs. Now again, if I'm Fletch, I'm not saying I'm actively, but I wouldn't be opposed to moving a guy like Voracek if it meant bringing in a different type of offense here. When you were talking about to bring in offense, you're going to have to move someone, right? And if he were that guy, as long as you brought in someone proven, I would potentially not be heartbroken over it. But, and I only say this because now is probably your last shot potentially to get some trade value out of a guy like Voracek. And good general managers think of things like that. You know what I mean? Good general managers at least kick the tires.
I think the biggest problem with any sort of Jake move is in the NHL realistically, Jake's a top 10 winger in the NHL.
Yep.
At his position. So, and points wise, he's maybe even higher because he's always in on the play. I don't know if you get that production, and if you're taking a run with this core, this G, Jake, Coots core. I mean, Coots will be here for another 10, 15. But if you're taking another run with this core, I don't think you can break up G and Jake.
Yeah.
If you're going to run with it, you're going to run with the two of them. And I don't think you're going to win a trade if you move either of them. Not that you can move G anyway.
You're 100% going to lose the trade of Giroux.
Right.
Even if it's completely impossible anyway because of the no movement clause.
Right.
So, that's why we never really, look, we see it in chat a lot, but that's why we never really entertain it as much as we like to entertain just about everything from chat. And speaking of lost in my mind, this is a good comment from chat. I'm hoping this year was a good learning experience for the whole team that can roll into next year. I think there's only upside for every player. Imagine how Hart will play with a full year under his belt and playoffs. And playoffs in all caps too.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's a very, very intelligent comment. Very well put. And the only like, and this is, we're talking about G, Voracek. The only thing with those guys is, time is ticking.
Oh, yeah.
But, that's why I mentioned when we were talking about offense, and that's why I was like, well, what about, forget going out and looking, because that's, at this point, too, it's a little unrealistic. So forget about going out. Let's look within Morgan Frost.
I'm 100% in. My biggest thing with Frost is if Patrick is playing, if Patrick is ready to go, because it seems like now he's playing. He's playing up in Winnipeg right now.
Oh, it is? Yeah, that's good to know. Actually, I didn't know that.
It's a scrimmage. I don't know to what level they're hitting. But he's playing. He's playing in a game, yada, yada. If he's ready to go.
If real quick, if I hear Nolan Patrick is playing NHL 2K21 at this point, I'm excited. So to hear that he's scrimmaging, it's good news. So and for his health too. Like, we know what he's been dealing with, some pretty serious stuff if he's not been able to play because of it. So yeah,
And when Fletcher talked about it, when he was speaking about him and Lindblom and the bubble, they spoke that he probably could have played this year, but it would have been a whole year since he had played. Having him step into a playoff game like that and having him, it was better to wait and give him the extra couple months. So
like, now we'll take the guy off of cancer instead.
Who's only been out there for 4 months.
No, that's not a knock to Patrick. That's just, let me just keep putting Lindblom on the pedestal that he deserves.
What is? It was funny too. I saw a comment from one of the beat writers who was talking about Hackstall's last game. He benched Lindblom, and he played Yuri Laterra, which tells you all you need to know about Dave Hackstall and his idea of what makes a good hockey team. So that story is a lot funnier when you know Lindblom's safe. When you can reference it again 2 years, 3 years later, and Lindblom is beating cancer and back in an NHL lineup, it's a lot better of a story than when you try and tell the story and you're like, hopefully he plays hockey again so that, he's okay and he's alive,
Yeah.
all of those things. But being able to enjoy that date because it's coming up again for 3 years since they fired Hackstall. And it was remarkable that was the way that man went out. But like I said, when you look at this team now, you have Giroux, Poirier, Konechny, Voracek, Hayes, and Lindblom. When you talk about going out and getting a guy, which of those 6 are you moving down to play them up top? Like, if you're going to go get a Tyler Toffoli, he's got to play in your top 6 to be effective. If you go get Line A, he's starting in the top 6 somewhere. So someone's getting dropped down below that. So I'm not sure this team needs that offensive spark as much as from within. You need Farabee to take another step. You need Hayes to continue to gel with these guys. You got to find the line combinations that work to bring JVR back to the 30-goal scorer. This year he was on pace for 28 before the lockdown, but it is what it is. 28 goals is still a lot more than I think most people thought he was on pace for. You need Lindblom to be back to Lindblom. And if you get Patrick or Frost to take a step, that's significantly better than what you had 8 weeks ago when you lost in Game 7 of the second round. You know, you're talking about not having Nate Thompson. You're talking about Scott Long, who might have been the Flyers' best player throughout most of the playoffs, who was a second-line player, now going back to the fourth line where he belongs. You know, when you have that deep a team, Tampa Bay just won because they had probably the best bottom 6 in NHL history. They had 6 guys who probably higher on most teams who were able to just dominate the bottom of the other team's lineup. So I think the Flyers are putting themselves in a position to do the same thing. But you need steps. You need to see Joel Farabee go from that 19-year-old kid to just a pro. Stronger on the puck, a little bit bigger. You know, and like I said, I thought Fletcher did a good job of addressing the fans' concerns in the best way he could. Flyers been begging for a shooter for decades.
I know since I've started this show, while everyone was calling for a goaltender or defenseman, we started this in 2011. Throughout the whole time, my number one thing has been get another goal scorer.
Well, they just drafted one for you, buddy.
Yeah, and look, and you know, I've said that because it's always going to be the hardest thing to get, right? Tampa Bay wants another goal scorer. You know, it's like saying we need another reliever or we need another offensive weapon. Like every good team, like the Patriots are probably going to sign Le'Veon Bell, right? Like, or you know, one of these good teams, not the Eagles. I can tell you that for a fact. But like, it's like every good team still wants. So of course the bad teams want that too. Oh, yeah. But yeah, it of course it would be outstanding to get another goal scorer. But I think that realistically, while I'm with every fan still to this day, I'm gonna even when they get another goal scorer, I'm gonna be like get another goal scorer because that's just how I am. But I think more realistically thinking that it's going to come from within, and to go off of your bottom 6 thing, I mean, just look back at this playoffs. That's where our scoring came from. Oh, yeah. And if anything, to a fault, you know, and like it was like we needed the top 6 or even just the top 3, and that's why everyone's so down on Giroux right now, you know, in particular.
Down on Giroux for 15 years.
Yeah, I'm not right. I'm not saying it's rightfully, but yeah, that's why like right now it's a little, you know, the Giroux stock in Philadelphia is down, but I think that it's a really good point to note that the bottom 6 of this team is most likely going to be what realistically gets, you know, bulked up. And your top 6 is going to remain the same, which is where you need leaps out of Konechny, which I expect. I really like Travis Konechny's game. I always have. And I like Morgan Frost's game too, and I really want to see him out there. No, Mr. Five-Hole is back, and and again, he is part of why this has been a quiet, good offseason to me. You brought back Moose, who was just sound, just a backup MVP for this team throughout your entire year. I understand that he did indeed let up a 5-hole goal in the playoffs, and as soon as that happened, I was like, oh boy, I'm here. Here comes the text. But even still, And that, in my opinion, and I know we've had a little bit, and we don't need to go back, but that's where I didn't even want him to start in that game. And in my opinion, when your goalie is 23 or 22, I mean, you just play him every day because he's never going to get in more shape than he is in 22. But no, Moose is back, and look, while Braun and like they're not my favorite players, but when you're going to kind of turn this thing around the way that the NHL is doing, and I think that keeping some continuity is actually a good thing. And I'm, especially with the Flyers, never this kind of guy. I'm always like, just get as many different pieces, but why am I different? Because I see that things have changed.
Yeah.
And because I see that the pieces that Hextall laid in place are being used properly by Fletcher. I'm excited. I'm excited for this team, and yeah, Vigneault as well. I have. What are your? I know it's crazy early, but what are your kind of expectations, for lack of a better term? Like, I know we all want to win a cup, but what do you think the realistic expectation is going to be when we, tip, when we drop the puck for the first time, ideally January 1st or sometime close to it?
I think my biggest concern for the way the next season will be set up is actually Moose. I agree with you if it was a normal season coming up, I'm all for everything you said. I think he's solid. I think him and Hart have a great relationship. I'm all for all of that. My concern is if you're going to plan to get the league back to normal as soon as possible, that means you're probably going to hope to start January 1st, which I think is unrealistic. I think they probably start February 1st. And then you're going to try and jam 50-ish games between then and be done in August, Cup included, which means you have a ton of 3 games in 4 nights over and over and over again all season, which means Carter can't play 50 games.
Yeah.
Carter's got to play 30 probably of the games, and now you need a goaltender who's playing 20 games. Almost, I don't want Moose playing 40% of my team's games.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And that was my biggest concern with bringing him back is if you were going to tell me it's a normal 82 game, they don't even play this year, they go start next October, I'm all for it. But my biggest concern right now is I don't know. I knew it was a loss when he started in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't have enough faith in him to win us a game. I have faith that they can win with him in the net, but he wasn't going to steal you a game, and Carter up until that point had been stealing games. And to what someone's point was earlier about Hart is he's never played 100 games in a season before. He's never done anything quite like that. So I thought he looked tired by the end of the Islander series. He's not that he didn't play well, but the goaltender who stole games in the Montreal season, in this Montreal series, Carter wasn't that guy in New York. He gave up goals he wouldn't have given up the previous week. He gave up goals that were weak for him. And not that it was his fault that they would lose a 2-1 game, but when one of those goals shouldn't have gone in, it kills you. And when you have Carter at his best, that doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference between a guy like Hart and a guy like Price, who just straight up win games for you. Vasilevsky did the same thing in Tampa Bay the whole series, the whole playoffs. Whereas Khudobin had good games for Dallas, but he was a mediocre goalie who looked like a mediocre goalie, and you're not beating a top-notch goalie like that. So to answer your original question, now that I've talked in circles for 10 seconds, is I don't think they can win it this year. I don't think they're there just yet. I'm going to have a lot of money on the fact that they win the following year. I think the timing just works out to a place for them. I think the West with Colorado and Vegas are just unstoppable next year. Mm-hmm. And they run into cap hell, and they're going to have to make a whole lot of changes coming forward. I expect the Flyers to make the playoffs handedly. Now, again, if it's 50 games and it's weird and you never know. You just saw how many teams make the baseball playoffs under 500. So I don't know what a shortened season looks like. But I expect them to not only compete, but I expect them to be if not the best team in the Metro, the second best team. I think Carolina is going to be sick for a long time to come. And obviously the Isles are young for the most part. Teams like Pittsburgh, Washington are always going to be there, but they're going to start falling off. And the Rangers and Devils can keep winning first overall picks, but they suck, and they're not close. Artemi Panarin can only do so much in that terrible team. And Lafreniere is about to find out the same thing. There's only so much you do, and your defense is one of the worst of all time. So I expect them to make the playoffs pretty handily, and I expect them to be able to make a run. I mean, this is like someone just mentioned. You never know with injuries, but that's the good thing about this team is they're deep.
Yeah.
For the first time that I can remember, it's a really, really deep team to the point where you could have two defensemen down and you have legitimate NHL caliber players playing behind them, or at least fill-ins that are able to hold it down. Offensively, I think you have 4 or 5 guys who can legitimately play in the bottom 6 who are going to be playing for the Phantoms this year. And the whole third line of, like I said, Farabee, and whether it's Patrick or Frost to go with JVR, all 3 of those guys can play up the lineup. Farabee proved he's a top-line guy. JVR shouldn't be at 5-on-5, but he has been in the past. And Patrick's shown immense skill in his time in the NHL. So this is the deepest team that I can remember in a long time. And they're homegrown for, like I said, Hextall did a hell of a job. And the cupboard that is still packed full because of him is something that's going to provide for years to come. I mean, you still have 2 top-notch defensemen and 2 or 3 top-notch forwards coming, 2 of which are goal scorers, big-time goal scorers. So now that's Fletcher, not Hextall, but I digress.
Yeah. For me, I think my hope is obviously to win a Stanley Cup, but more realistic is like let's hopefully get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Make another step, closer.
Yep.
And let us continue to have that faith in Carter Hart and everything. Hopefully feel better about Giroux and our top 6 at the end of this year. But it's certainly not out of the question. It's certainly a deep run is it's not out of the question at all. We saw it this year already. And is the 1 seed? It's a little unlikely that they get that next year. But it's definitely maybe still get into the top 4.
Yeah,
I think that's very realistic. Hart will bring the cup home. We're all hoping.
I'm with you.
We're all hoping.
I think the biggest thing for the top 6, like you said, it's not going to change, and they need to step up. Yes, the bottom 6 did score this year in the playoffs, but the bottom 6 gave up a lot of goals.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this has been the story of G's career here in Philadelphia is the less pressure you put on him to have to do everything, the more help you're going to get from the bottom 6 and from the middle 6 and, from below him gives him the opportunity. This is a guy who's his whole career he's matched up against the top line of the other team, and they're not who beats the Flyers. Matt Barzal had 3 points in that or 5 points in the whole series, and 4 of them were against Nate Thompson. So when he was out against Giroux and Couturier for the other rest of the time, he had 1 point, and it was a power play point. So, you're talking about guys who, unfortunately, Drew needs to stop playing with Couturier at some point. I think they help each other, but when Coots is going to be consistently the guy who's stopping the number 1 guy on the other team, you're going to start a lot of time in your defensive zone. You're going to start at a disadvantage, and I think a guy like Drew at this point in his career needs to be starting in the offensive zone and just let him work. Let him just fire. I'd love to see him fire more pucks at the net, but at the end, he'll just make ridiculous passes that somehow work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the better the team is overall, less pressure you're putting on 2 or 3 guys to make it, to do everything for you, the better chance this team has. And like I said, I think that's where the depth really comes into play.
Yep, totally agree. Well, I think at this point in the show, we're running a little over. So if you got any other final thoughts, anything at all, bring it. This was a really fun show. And guess what? Talking about the Flyers for that last half hour like we did or so, I feel a little bit better, right? I feel a little bit better, and that's what we needed. That's what we need. That's what it's like. And again, I think it's just the. I hope I'm not being too high on them. I think they've just quietly had a really good offseason. And I think that realistically, or not real, we all want them to go out and make the big move, but I think realistically that's going to happen organically with this team. And you could still have something come down at the trade deadline, or they don't just make a move to take up cap space because you have it. And I think that's been something that this team for yes, like, oh, we have $3 million, we have to spend $4 million. Like, no, you can wait.
Right.
But hey, we got a little sarcastic "Go Eagles" in chant. I mean, of course. Hey, we are looking forward. We hope for an Eagles win. Hope that the fans in the stands, like I said, be safe, be loud. But yeah. With that, I think we're gonna put a bow on this one. It has been a ton of fun. Kev, thank you so much for joining us. Anything else that you want to get out there before we sign off?
Nah, I'm good. Now I'm just waiting for. I messed up buying NHL 21 because I meant to buy the one that lets me start 3 days early. I'm playing right now, but I was cheap and didn't spend the extra like $6, and now I gotta wait for another 27 hours. So.
Oh, it's rough. It's rough. So yeah, thank you guys all for tuning in. We got a couple subs today, I'm reading chat, a couple new follows. Help us Flyers, you're our only hope. That's where the Flyers was slipping into my tongue there. Yes. So yeah, guys, thank you all for tuning in, both live and on demand if you're watching us on the YouTubes. But with that, I'm Anthony Pinto.
And I'm Kevin Christian.
And we are out of